going into Sunday in Las Vegas, Nevada, the New York Jets are facing a game that, A, they cannot lose. They have to win this game. And if they don't win this game on Sunday, in my humble opinion, it's going to be the worst loss of the Robert Saleh era. And it's going to be the worst loss since Week 17 against the Bills back in 2015 when they essentially lost a playoff game to Buffalo. That's what's on the line. Their season feels on the line. They have to win this game. After what happened on Monday against the Chargers, and as disgusting as that all was, we kind of get the dirt off of our body, we stand up, but we were proclaim in one voice, very calmly as I can, Tiki, they have to win Sunday night in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Well, because of where they sit right now, which is not with a losing record. Yes, they missed an opportunity, but they feel like a team that while they need to win, I don't think they have to win. Maybe emotionally they have to win. Maybe they need a correction after what happened and how they played against the LA Chargers. But this isn't a have to win, but it is an emotional need to win for sure because they need to play good football, right? They need to prove to themselves, I think obviously to the fan base, but really to themselves that they can play a tight game and earn a victory, not be given it, right? The Giant victory was basically given to them. The Chargers, took one away from them, mostly because of the turnovers and the points that were gifted to the Chargers. Right? For them, they need to play a winning style of football, offensively and defensively, for 60 minutes. Otherwise, you start. I don't want to say you start losing yourself, but you start just believing it's never going to happen.
Well, the reason, besides the standings, because you're right about this, Tiki. They lose this game, they're 4-5, and we could sit here and rationalize all day. Well, they play Buffalo and Miami.
Right.
Win those games, they can win the AFC East.
Just win the division.
I don't make this argument from a mathematical standpoint because it's not true. Obviously, from a mathematical standpoint, being 4-5 is not the death sentence. Here's why they have to win this game. And I know that you and others don't like talking about history because history doesn't matter. Well, I won't bring up 1997 or 1977. That's not what I'll do. I'll bring up last year. Because what happened last year when they got off to a 5-2 start, when they were 6-3, when they were 7-4, whenever you want to start the collapse and when it truly began, but they let that season snowball.
It's not going to snowball.
Well, it did last year, Coach. It did. They let that season get completely out of control. And maybe it was losing to the Patriots 10-3. Maybe it was after the Bear win, the tough loss to Minnesota and Buffalo. You can pick your moment on when it did snowball.
Yeah.
But the Jets went from a team that was legitimately in a playoff race with very similar feelings of this year to last year. Like a positive feeling, a big-time defense. They're overcoming an average quarterback. The defense is awesome. And then it fell apart. And I don't know if it was one game that led to the falling apart, but I think this season you can look at what happened against the Chargers and say, I hope that's not what leads to the falling apart. And that's my fear. My fear is it snowballs, Tiki.
Well, I think the snowball, especially just think about last year. The snowball last year was all because the guy who was your offensive leader, even if he wasn't really, but he was your offensive leader because he's your starting quarterback, basically turned into a jerk, and the guys didn't accept him. And so as a result, you lose him. Now they're championing Mike White, who's a backup quarterback. And yeah, maybe he played better when he was in the game, but still, he's your backup quarterback. So it just created this divide. The snowball happened because nobody was walking in the same line. It was like everybody was walking to their own agenda and saying whatever they wanted to, and it snowballed. I don't feel like that's going to happen this year. I don't think the snowball is in play in this 2023 season like it was last year. A lot of that is maturity, right? Zach Wilson, who is your starting quarterback really by default right now, he's not going to have that same kind of screw up, you know what I mean? And so the snowball to me doesn't feel like it's the issue. To me, the issue is just finding a way to play a complete game of football, the whole complementary football thing that we talk about. More than anything, it's not must win, but it is you have to play winning football on both sides of the football at least once to get yourself believing that you can actually do it. They haven't done it yet. And so until they do, we're always going to question it. And I think, honestly, they're questioning it.
Well, here's the problem. not all snowballs are created equal.
It's
and we
not
know
a snowball.
Sometimes you put a snowball together and it's nice and fluffy and you throw it and it's perfect and it explodes in the air as it hits the other person you're throwing the snowball at. Other times the snowball's kind of icy. It's kind of dangerous. You throw that snowball, it could poke somebody's eye out. And then there's a third kind of snowball where it's way too fluffy, where it actually doesn't even stay as a ball. Like you throw the snowball and it just becomes dust.
Yeah,
so
falls apart.
So the snowball of last year that you described, you're right. It had to do with a lack of confidence from Zach, an attitude from Zach, a quarterback change, that quarterback getting hurt. And there were a lot of elements to the snowball that I agree would not be a part of this snowball. But I'll tell you what fears me, what's causing me this angst about why and how the snowball can happen in 2023. They are playing football with a slim margin of error. I call it the Jet formula, and it's worked. At times it's worked. They beat the Philadelphia Eagles following this Jet formula. This can't turn the ball over. The defense must force multiple turnovers. You're going to play clean on special teams, and you will sneak out a victory because your defense late in games will dominate. And they've done that a few times against some pretty damn good teams. They did it week 1 against Buffalo. More recently, they did it against Philadelphia. Well, all of a sudden, last week against the Chargers, not even last week, it was 5 days ago, special teams wasn't so clean. The defense didn't force a turnover. They committed a few turnovers, and all of a sudden, you get blown out because there's no margin for error. And so here's what scares me. Obviously, it's tough to win when there's no margin of error, but I worry that maybe Zach isn't immature, but maybe that room is going to look at one side of it and say, hey, you're the reason we're not winning. You know, the defensive side of that room has done its job, and they're humans. So if they lose to the Las Vegas Raiders in the way that they would lose to the Las Vegas Raiders, which is the defense is good enough, but the offense can't score points, what worries me and what can contribute to the 2023 snowball is that all of a sudden that room that seems so together right now, all of a sudden it cracks.
It's not going to snowball.
Because you have an offensive coordinator that basically admitted yesterday, yeah, we just all have to be better. Well, after a while, those answers not only piss me off, they're going to piss Quinnen Williams off, even though he's a teddy bear. Yeah. They're going to piss Bryce Huff off. They're going to piss Sauce Gardner off because that side of the room is going to say, hey, we're playing championship-level defense. We're doing everything we can, and we're losing. And so I agree. The Jet snowball wouldn't occur the way it occurred last year, but it could be a different kind of snowball. And if you lose to the Raiders in that kind of way, I'm afraid to know what this thing's going to look like a week from now.
It's not going to snowball.
I think so much of it is going to depend, though, on how Zach and this offense performs. And so much it depends on quarterbacks in the NFL. Hell, we saw it last night, that ugly game that we all lost, by the way, because of the half a damn point. We saw it last night. Bad quarterback play just makes football frustrating, right? It's a frustrating watch when quarterback play isn't good. And for the Jets, for a lot of this season, that's what we've had. It's just frustrating quarterback play. Now, they've won some games, obviously, and they haven't made the mistakes, but the frustrating quarterback play eventually wears on you. It becomes something that, I don't know, you want to lash out, even though you know that there's nothing you can do about it. And I think that's what the Jets have to guard against, is letting the frustration for what is almost certain to be, disjointed, frustrating play actually start affecting you. And if it affects the team, then the leadership's not good enough. That, to me, that's what it comes down to. You know the circumstances you're in. You know the situation that you're in. You know the limitations of Zach Wilson. You know all of these things already. The hard thing is not letting it get to you. That's what the Jets have to be focused on more than anything else.
But how do you do that? Because I think you'd agree. You
just have to accept it, man.
Well, no. People don't accept losing.
Yes, you're right. You're right. But you have to accept that this is why this Jets team is not good. And why, I don't mean they're not good because they are really good defensively, but this is why they're having trouble winning. They can't score points. There's frustration. And so being able to, accept that and then hope that it gets better is what you have to focus on more than the wins and losses. You know what I mean?
No.
Because this isn't a terminal situation, at least not this week.
Tiki, it's all about the wins and losses. That's where we are.
But
We're
not
in
this
year
week.
3 of Robert
But not
Saleh.
this week. But not this week.
Of course,
I don't think it's a must-win game. I think it is a
Tiki, if they lose this game, be honest with me. If they lose this game, and I'm not arguing that
you're going to be screaming and yelling.
Forget
and you're
me.
Gonna be frustrated.
Forget me. I'm a lunatic. Ask yourself this. You are a great football analyst. If they lose this game, and they have lost back-to-back games to the Chargers and the Raiders, in which their offense is inept, do you think they're coming off that, Matt?
No, but I do think that there is a chance that something might happen, right?
Well, what's that? A quarterback change?
Yes, absolutely. We said it on Monday or Tuesday, right? Early in the week. At some point, you know where Zach's ceiling is, and it's not he's going to be a Pro Bowl quality quarterback. He's average. He's an average quarterback. Now, there's a lot of average quarterbacks in the league, and doesn't mean you can't win with them, but he's an average quarterback. But if he's playing below average like he consistently has been, then you can't win with him. You have to make a change. At the very least, it creates a reason for Robert Saleh to come off that Zach is our quarterback no matter what.
So it's going to take another loss for that to happen? They have to be 4-5?
Well,
they have to lose this game?
I don't think it's a loss. I think it's just it's non-inspiring offensive play. You know, we know what we're getting from their defense. It's going to be the same every single week because they're not complex. They're not doing a bunch of crazy stuff. They're not dogging and blitzing all over the place. They're not playing these combo coverages on defense. They play basic, zone basic defense, and they play it extraordinarily well. Right, and they make big plays up front with their front four, and then obviously their second level with the linebackers, Quincy and CJ. And so we know what they can do defensively, and we know we're going to get it every single week, right? So the challenge is offensively creating something that looks different. And if they can't do it with Zach Wilson, they have to. They have to at some point move on and start somebody else just to see.
I agree with you, Tiki, but there has been no sign from this coaching staff that that's happening anytime soon. Not one sign. So I don't know what would make you feel, and I want you to be right. Actually, I don't want you to be right because I want the Jets to win. But I want you to be right that there would be a moment where they say, hey, we got to try something different. I've made that case to you all week long, but I've got no reason to believe they will try anything different. It almost seems like they have decided we are going to sink or swim with Zach Wilson, which is a part of why.
But that makes no sense.
Of course it makes no sense.
But think about that. Why would that make any sense to just say, all right, I know Zach's not really good right now, but after 8 weeks, I believe he's going to get better next week. Like, you can't keep saying that.
But that's what they keep doing.
I know, but at some point that has to change, especially when your defense is playing as well as it is.
I agree with you, and that's why it concerns me, not just losing a game that makes you 4-5, not just losing to Antonio Pierce. It's not simply about that. It's that Robert Saleh said day one, this won't snowball. And in the back of my mind, and the back of all of our minds, we're afraid of the snowball because we saw it a year ago.
Yeah.
And right now, they're in a snowball moment. They're in a moment where you lose to the Raiders and you score 9 points and your defense leaves it all out on the field. It will snowball because you're going to lose guys in that room. And I want to ask you this. All right, you've been in rooms. You've played in this league. Right now, if I gave Garrett Wilson a lie detector test, and I acknowledge that Garrett Wilson contributed to that loss on Monday with that fumble, so we all know it. He's not perfect, but lie detector test. You're in a room with Garrett Wilson, and you're like, hey, Garrett, you think you can win with Zach Wilson? What do you think he says?
I think he still has his back. I really do.
Even with a lie detector test?
Yeah, I do. I honestly, I do. I think he believes in Zach Wilson. And I'm not saying that he believes that Zach Wilson's going to be a Pro Bowler, but I think he believes that Zach, when push comes to shove, can make the play and will make the throw. Now, I think you have to consistently prove that he can't, and he's done that. See, the problem is it's not like he's making these horrendous mistakes. It's not like he's missing guys every single throw, because there are times where it's like, man, that was a great throw. Man, that was a great decision that he made. But it's just there's not enough of them. And so it's like you're just waiting for consistency. It's not that you're waiting for him to be good, because he's a decent player, but you're just waiting for consistency. And so I think if you ask Garrett Wilson or really anybody on this offense, you can ask Coach Saleh, you can ask Hackett this. They're going to tell you the same thing. Zach, there are moments where he's good, but We're just waiting for consistency. And waiting for consistency, if you continually lose and pull yourself out of playoff contention, if they should just ride the course with Zach, that's just asinine. It doesn't make any sense, right? At some point you have to realize this isn't working, and you got to do something different. That's what I'm waiting for with this team. It's either that or Zach just makes this miraculous jump, which I don't see coming.
When the New York Jets suck, and they've sucked for a very, very long time, a lot of losses going into the dustpan of history. Like, you remember it, but it doesn't kind of live with you the way those brutal losses live with you. And between the years of 2016 and before last year, the Jets didn't have a lot of brutal losses. They didn't have a lot of brutal losses because they sucked, because they were bad. You know, really, the most brutal, quote-unquote, loss to most Jet fans during that time period was actually a win, was the win against the Rams, because it made you feel like they lost out on Trevor Lawrence. So last year was the first time since 2015 when they lost that pseudo-playoff game to the Buffalo Bills Week 17, where there were losses that kind of live in your soul. And to me, there were two of them. There were two of them specifically that live in my soul now as that typical brutal Jet loss. You've got the 10-3 loss to the Patriots specifically, even more so than the previous loss to New England, the 10-3 game. And it was a typical Zach Wilson game. He didn't turn the ball over. Yay! He didn't throw any interceptions. Yay! Except they had 103 total yards, and they scored 3 points. And we all felt, boy, Robert Saleh, you need to make a quarterback change. So that's game number one. The other game that sits with me, and I think you remember it because you were in the building, was Brock Wright is still running. He's that tight end from the Detroit Lions who went 60 yards on fourth down, and then Robert Saleh just completely screwed up his timeout situation after that, and the Jets lost 20-17. Those two losses, and it's the Robert Saleh era. So I'm not going back to 1968. I'm not going back to 1985. I'm going back to last year. Those two losses are the two worst losses the Jets have had in the last 8 years. If they lose to the Raiders on Sunday night on national TV with Antonio Pierce smoking his cigars, if they lose this game, I'm telling you right now, I don't even know how they've lost. I'm just projecting this. It will pass the Lion game. It will pass the Patriot game, and it will be the worst loss this franchise has had since Week 17 against the Bills in 2015. That's what's on the line besides their season. The Jets are winning, no problem.
The only reason I push back is because it's only their 9th game. Right? There's still so many more to go. They have 8 more to go, and it's still salvageable. There's still ways to correct it, and if that means changing your quarterback, you got to do it. At some point, that decision is not going to be, hey, we're just sticking with Zach, because that's what we're getting right now. And there's no reason behind it. It's just, hey, we're just sticking with Zach, right? That at some point, that's not going to be a good enough answer. And I'm talking externally, but probably more importantly, internally. And when that happens, then we know that they're serious about winning.
Well, right now they're not serious about winning, is what you're saying.
Yeah, basically.
They're not, because they haven't made a quarterback change. They're not doing anything different other than telling us.
They're not even contemplating it.
Right.
They're not even. That's my problem with it is not that they haven't done it. Because look, I kind of see some good things with Zach, but they're not even contemplating it. And if you know that he can't win for you, you have to at least think about making a change. And they're not even thinking about it.
If they're not even thinking about making a change, what makes you think they'll ever make a change?
I don't know. Faith for Jet fans, hope,
thanks.
Belief,
Hope.
belief in something I can't see.
Belief in sanity. Okay.